The day Jeffrey Woods and his family arrived at their new home, the sky was overcast and the weather was muggy. The gray skies seemed to punctuate his mood. Jeff was not thrilled to be here. Their new home was beautiful, though, a true example of his father's newfound success, but still, it wasn't the home he'd known. A week after they'd settled in, Jeff and Lou woke up early. The sky was a crisp and gorgeous blue, and although the Louisiana heat was playing its usual cruel tricks, the brothers decided that a morning bike ride to explore the area would be just the right ticket to combat the slight pangs of homesickness that they'd both been experiencing over the last week. "I miss home," Lou blurted out, as Jeff was smearing salsa on the microwaved burrito that would serve as his breakfast. "Me too, Lou, but I guess this is home now, so we just sort of have to make the most of it." "I know, but all of our friends and stuff are back in New Orleans. Remember that building we'd always sneak up on top of and watch the city lights come on?" "I miss that," Lou responded, sounding down. "Yeah, and ZM Video, the owner, knew us and would always let us rent R-rated movies without our parents, and he'd always hook us up with a free video game rental if we got a few movies." "Yeah, I miss that too, but Lou, we have to." "Online movie streaming services." Lou interrupted. "I know we have to make the most out of this, but still, this place just seems so fake, and Mom and Dad still treat us like we aren't even here." "Yep, they do. I was sort of hoping the new house would improve their mood, but what can we do?" Lou had no answer. Jeff finished his breakfast, and the two boys left the house to mount their bikes and explore around a bit more. As it turned out, the subdivision they moved into was rather close to a cluster of stores in a small shopping center. Village Shopping Center was the name of the short row of businesses. Within these were a Pizza Hut, a Chinese restaurant, a tobacco store, a Sprint store, and, what Jeff and Lou were most excited about, a video store. "We'll have to get Mom or Dad to come down here and open up an account so we can rent movies," Lou mentioned as Jeff flipped a box over to read the description of a horror movie. "Shit." "You're right," Jeff snapped, feeling a bit of frustration at this thought. He knew getting his parents to actually come down here and set up a membership would take forever, since their usual after-work routine was to go off into separate rate rooms until they got hungry enough to come out and speak. Jeff glanced over at the girl working behind the counter. "Maybe I can go over there and sweet-talk her into giving us accounts," he joked. "Yeah, right, Jeff. One look at you and she'll probably ban us," Lou remarked back, a smile broad on his face. "You doubt me, little man." "Doubt you?" "The guy who's kissed two girls and almost touched a boob? Never. Please go on over and lay on all the charm." "Whatever. I totally could have banged that girl, but her parents came home and—" "Last time you told me that story, you said her parents were out of town and her sister came home." Jeff became flustered, and while in the process of trying to make yet another comeback, the girl behind the register removed all doubt by speaking to the boys herself. "Hey, aren't those your bikes?" the young woman asked, pointing towards the glass window. Jeff and Lou looked over and saw three boys outside, two of which were riding around in circles on the Woods brothers' bikes. They would spin them around and then jump off, letting the bikes crash onto the pavement, just to stand them up and ride them again. The two boys riding the bikes were both slim in build, while a heavier boy stood on the sidewalk, drinking a Red Bull and watching. Jeff and his brother made their way towards the doors of the video store when the fat kid saw them coming. Jeff couldn't hear what he said to his two friends, but he made some sort of gesture while shouting, and the other two boys dumped the bikes where they lay and walked towards the sidewalk, directly towards the two brothers. "Those your bikes?" one of the boys asked as Jeff and Lou entered the summer heat. "Yeah, why are you riding them?" Lou asked sharply. "We just saw them there, man. Relax. Figured someone just left them out for us," the same boy responded, as his two friends joined him on either side. Jeff, determined to make a good start here, tried to change the course of this confrontation. Well, they're ours. We just moved here about a week ago. We live over on Fairmont Avenue, a few blocks from here. We were just checking out the neighborhood. Jeff hoped that a civil tone could turn things around, but he could tell by the insolent look on the kid's face that this was a difficult gamble. "Good for you. You moved somewhere," the fat kid remarked. "Oh yeah," Troy, the first boy, spoke. "They moved into that piece of shit house with the gravel driveway. I was wondering who would move into that place." "Well, Randy, now we know the big kid, apparently named Troy," replied. Jeff, still trying to salvage the conversation, tried peaceful banter one more time. "Okay, so you're Troy and you're Randy. Well, I'm Jeff and this is my brother Lou. We just moved here from New Orleans." "You ain't in New Orleans now," the third boy, who'd just now decided to speak, remarked. "Yeah, and who said you could call us by our names?" Randy asked, that insolent, privileged smile never leaving his face. Jeff smiled and responded to Randy, "Well, I guess I could have called you a shitty hole, but I figured I would give you the benefit of the doubt." In that moment, a flare of rage replaced the smirk that had rested on Randy's face throughout this entire exchange. The other two boys, Troy and the still unknown third member of his band, seemed to be momentarily struck silent. Perhaps they weren't used to being stood up to. "Oh, I'm sorry. Was that language too adult for you?" Jeff asked. "And you, quiet boy, we know this isn't New Orleans." Jeff stated to the slim kid that had reminded him of his geographical locations, because if this was New Orleans, you three would already have gotten your asses kicked for touching someone else's shit. The slim kid looked back and forth at his two friends. However, Randy, clearly the leader, seemed to know what to say. "Keith, you gonna let this little bitch talk to you like that?" Jeff knew this part, and while he wanted quite badly to sock Randy and his pals around, a real concern suddenly invaded his mind. If he and Lou got into a fight on their first week in this new neighborhood, their parents would freak. He could practically hear it now. And while things had been far from perfect in their home, even after the move, there was a peace that had fallen over the family, and Jeff, fighting his urges, decided to do his best to keep it. Jeff looked over the three, very well-dressed, very privileged-looking suburban kids before them, and dismissed them. "You guys are boring. Come on, Lou, let them continue their play dates without us." Lou laughed at that and followed behind his brother towards the bikes. However, Randy and his little gang of would-be toughs would have none of that. They moved to block Jeff and his brother once again. "Where you going, pussy?" Randy asked, shoving Jeff. Jeff could tell that shove had no real conviction. Randy was trying to figure him out, seeing where his buttons were. He'd push harder eventually, but Jeff swallowed the slowly building anger within him once more. Lou took a bit more exception to the shove. "We're going to your mom's house. Me and my brother saved up a couple dollars from doing chores, and we hear she doesn't charge much." As the words left Lou's mouth, Randy appeared to only register a small portion of it all. Randy Hayden had grown up in Mandeville. His father was a partner at a local firm that made a lot of money, something else that Jeff would soon come to learn. Randy and his friends, while the same age as Jeff, had grown up in very different circumstances. They were used to being listened to, they were used to being feared. In fact, Randy, the target of the insult, just stood there. It was actually Troy, the fat kid, who stepped forward, fist balled, eyes squinted in anger. "Who you talking to?" Troy shouted, and took a wild swing at Lou. Lou, who was both in better shape and had sparred with Jeff a time or two during his time spent boxing, was able to avoid the punch, but just barely. Had that been all, it may have once again ended there. Troy was clearly taken by surprise at Lou's speed and actually didn't attempt another punch. However, these were bullies, kids that ran in a pack for a reason. The skinny one, Keith, stepped around and threw a punch that connected with the left side of Lou's face. Jeff had seen enough. He'd been shocked at how quickly this evolved into blows, even though he'd expected it from almost the start. When he'd first met Randy and his friends, he'd been curious. From there, he'd developed an annoyance with them, and slowly that annoyance had evolved into anger. However, upon seeing Lou punched, seeing the small trickle of blood form on his brother's lower lip, upon seeing the smug look of satisfaction on Keith's face, that anger that Jeff felt suddenly exploded into a rage that he'd never felt before in his life. Jeff Woods did not hesitate. He stepped forward, his feet automatically falling into the correct stance that he'd learned from the boxing classes his father once enrolled him into, and delivered a powerful right hand to Keith's face. The skinny boy had no time to register shock or pain. The punch caught him by surprise, and his knees buckled. Keith went down to the ground in a heap of confusion and dawning fear. Randy, the so-called leader here, was almost too shocked to move. He'd had quite a lot of experience starting fights, but no real time logged in losing them. He'd never felt control of a situation slip. He was used to being in charge. So now, seeing one of his friends go down so quickly and easily, left him in a state of shock that he had no idea how to address. Troy, on the other hand, seemed to have a plan: throw another punch. He moved towards Jeff deceptively faster than his weight would seem to allow, and threw two equally fast punches. Jeff, however, had no problem sidestepping both attempts. Troy, seeming lost for actions, actually dropped his arms, as if to say, "Gee, what do I do now?" Jeff had the answer. He moved in, throwing 3 hooks to Troy's stomach. The hefty kid's eyes went as wide as pie pans. A fitting analogy, Jeff thought. He staggered back, clutching his throbbing stomach. Jeff wasted no time and stepped in once more, fetching a sharp punch to the big kid's jaw, causing Troy to promptly fall on his ass. Jeff was reminded of King Hippo from the Punch-Out game he used to play. He couldn't help but smile. Jeff now turned his focus on Randy. He advanced on the boy, feeling something new forming inside of him. He still felt the anger, the rage actually, at the antics of these 3 shits. They had the nerve to mess with their bikes, the nerve to insult 2 kids they'd never met before, and of course the ultimate offense, touching his brother. However, mixed in with this rage was also a sweet, enjoyable pleasure. Not only was he kicking their asses, but he was loving every second of it. It was as though the joy of showing them up was perfectly blending with the rage he felt towards them. Together, it formed into a sadistic, controlled sense of power. That was, until Lou stepped in front of him. "Jeff, stop. That's enough." "Why stop now, Lou?" "They wanted this," Jeff replied in a flat voice that Lou had never heard come from his brother's mouth. "She's calling the cops." "Look," Lou shouted again, and this time Jeff came back to reality long enough to listen. He glanced over at the video store clerk and saw her on the phone, talking frantically and pointing towards the parking lot. Suddenly, Jeff's strange, sadistic haze collapsed, and he regained his former self. "Leave, let's go," he stated quickly, and he and Lou mounted their bikes and rode towards the parking lot exit. "Yeah, you better run," Randy called behind them. Jeff and Lou paid no mind and pedaled away. A few blocks down the street, they dismounted their bikes and began to walk them together. At first, neither brother spoke, then Lou broke the silence. "Jeff, thank you for standing up for me back there, thank you." "Yeah, those guys were pieces of shit. They had it coming," Jeff replied, looking down at the street as they walked. "What? What happened?" "I've never seen you like that before." "Just defending myself, Lou. What was I supposed to do? Let them beat you up?" "I bet they go to our school. I bet we'll see them there. And they won't forget this." "Who cares? We didn't ask to move here. We didn't ask for any of this. Mom and Dad just wanted a bigger house in a nicer neighborhood, and we were along for the ride whether we liked it or not. Think I give a shit what these rich kids think of us?" Jeff stated, and went back to looking at his feet. "Think we'll get in trouble?" Lou asked. "For what? Defending ourselves." "Yeah, I guess you're right, they did start it," Lou answered, and to the brothers the matter was closed. However, things were far from over. They found that the trouble they believed they'd escaped was in fact waiting for them at their front door. Jeff and Lou saw the police cars well before they arrived at their driveway. 2 cop cars, both parked in front of their house. Both of them felt their stomachs drop, as they well knew why the police were there. The brothers entered the living room to see their parents sitting on the couch, the 2 cops standing up, leaning on the wall, writing in their notebooks. "What did you two do?" Sheila practically screeched as the 2 boys entered the house. Lou, younger and less centered than Jeff, began to fall on the defensive. "Some kids tried to jump us down by that video store. They were messing with our bikes, and when we went outside, they got in our faces." "That's not the way we heard it," Matt Woods interjected, his voice firm and ripe with anger and dissatisfaction. "No, Dad, that's what happened," Jeff began to explain. "We were down at Friendly Video, looking around the store, when these 3 kids started riding around on our bikes. All we did was walk outside, and the kids started talking trash to us, trying to provoke a fight. When we tried to leave, one of them punched Lou." Finally, one of the 2 cops spoke. His name tag read Williamson. "Boys, we have some serious complaints about the 2 of you. From what eyewitnesses at the shopping center say, you 2 started the confrontation with Randy and his friends." Jeff took notice at how familiar the cop's tone was when he said Randy's name. This was a small town after all, and there was a good chance that this cop coached Randy in Little League or drank beers with his dad. Hell, it was even possible that this cop could be an uncle to one of the bullies. "No, sir," Jeff replied. "We didn't start it. They did. We just wanted our bikes, we just wanted to leave. They blocked us." Williamson continued, as though he'd heard nothing Jeff said. "Several witnesses, including the video store clerk, say that you swung first. They say that the boys were riding your bikes. But let me ask you this, did you chain your bikes to anything, or did you just leave them outside the store?" "What's that matter?" Lou demanded. "Well, son, if you just left your bikes lying around in the street, you can't exactly blame Randy and his friends for riding them. Now can you? It'd be different had you secured them somehow, but you just left them there." "Mom, Dad, you're not buying this crap, are you? You know me and Lou don't start fights. When have we ever? These 3 punks messed with us, and if you can't tell that these cops are taking their sides, then you need to open your eyes." Jeff knew he was skating on thin ice, but that rage, it demanded some sort of satisfaction. "Jeffrey, do not speak about these officers in that tone of voice, and do not speak to us that way either. Now, it's pretty obvious that you 2 aren't happy here, that you miss your old home, but starting fights in the street isn't going to change anything." Jeff's mother snapped back. "Listen, boys, you're lucky. None of the parents want to press charges. This will be reported as a simple scuffle between teenagers. But be advised, you're both on notice. This is a quiet town, not like New Orleans. We don't tolerate this sort of behavior over here. If you see Randy, Keith, or Troy, I highly suggest you tell them you're sorry. We'll be keeping an eye on both of you, so don't let this happen again. You don't want to have an arrest record, do you?" Jeff felt his anger bubble over, and he could not hold his tongue. "Who is he to you, Officer Williamson? Is Randy your nephew? Is he a friend's son? Or maybe you go over and screw his mom while you're on duty. Which one is it, officer?" "That's it. Both of you go to your rooms." Matt Woods apparently found that he wasn't a mute after all, as he ordered his sons out of the room. Jeff and Lou walked up the stairs, however. They refused to hang their heads in shame or feel any regret. Neither of their parents spoke to them for the rest of that day. Jeff and Lou stayed upstairs, venting their shared frustration to each other. They'd been screwed over. Even at their young ages, they knew that. They took some solace in the fact that they at least hadn't been arrested or cited, but still, they saw what was really going on here. That cop, he was protecting Randy, Jeff whispered to his younger brother. No shit, his brother replied. We have to watch ourselves, we have to take care of each other. You saw it down there, even our parents didn't stand up for us. Yeah, what the hell was up with that, Lou asked. Imagine their image, that's what's up with it. All they care about is fitting in here. They want to make sure they blend in with the rest of the Stepford families. No more fighting. If we see Randy or his two shithead friends again, we just walk away, okay? But Jeff, you can kick the shit of them. Why would we walk away, Lou asked. Because I can't kick the shit out of the cops, Lou. I can't kick the shit out of Mom and Dad. And that's what would get us. Randy and his pals are protected here. You and me, we're not. So, if we see them, just avoid them, okay, please? Lou nodded. I feel like a little bitch, though. I owe Keith for hitting me. No, you don't. I paid him back for that, and paid his fat friend too. I hope they just leave us alone now, Jeff sighed. Jeff and Lou didn't hear from their parents for the rest of that day. They remained in their rooms late into the night, and finally came down to eat after they were sure their folks had gone to bed. Lou said that he felt relieved about that, but Jeff had a sinking feeling that the worst was yet to come. Jeff was correct. The next morning, when the two brothers came downstairs together to eat breakfast, their parents were already sitting at the dining room table, staring at the boys, approving of nothing they saw. Sit down, Matt stated flatly. What's going on, Lou asked. Sit ... down, Matt stated again, anger dancing on the words. The boys complied without further question. Matt Woods began his diatribe, whatever that was yesterday, beating up some kids for touching your bikes, mouthing off at the police, disrespecting both me and your mother. That stops today. We didn't beat anyone up for touching our bikes, Jeff blurted. Shut up, Jeff. This is a one-way conversation, his father barked. That kid, Randy Hayden, his father is a partner at my firm. Did you know that? Did you even think about that when you were assaulting him over your godforsaken bike? You just didn't think, did you, Jeff? Sheila added. How could I have known that? Matt continued. Well, I've spent the entire morning talking to his father on the phone. His dad is willing to let it all go, but shit, son, I have to deal with that at work now. Do you have any idea how much damage this could have done to me, to our family? Jeff felt that rage coming back and fought with all his might to keep it stifled. Instead, he once more tried to appeal to the two adults' parental side. Mom, look at Leo's face. They split his lip. Can't you see? It's still swollen. Lou turned his head to better showcase the injury. My God, Jeff, so some kid played a little rough with your brother. Is that any reason to fight them? I wanted to make friends with some of the other families in this neighborhood, but thanks to you, I just don't know. No sooner could Jeff or his brother construct a proper defense than their father began speaking again. So, your mother and I have talked this through. Since there are only a couple weeks of summer vacation left, we've decided that Lou should spend the rest of the season at Aunt Marcy's place. We've already spoken to her, and she is willing to let him come out there and stay. Both Jeff and Lou were floored by this decision. Both boys began to protest at the same time, but they saw the look on their parents' faces. The decision was made. Why can't we both just go then, Jeff asked, a last-ditch effort to at least get away from his parents. Marcy doesn't want both of you there. She says you two are too rambunctious, and frankly we agree, Sheila answered. And so it was. Lou was shuttled off to his aunt's place in Abita Springs, Louisiana, a place even smaller and duller than Mandeville, if one can believe that. Jeff watched his brother leave, and then walked back to his bedroom. He felt that rage, however, it began to feel almost pleasant to him. He couldn't explain it. He was furious at this turn of events. His parents had turned their backs on their own children. However, through it all, these new feelings he was experiencing weren't all terrible. This anger, for example, he could almost taste it. It felt like thick, sweet syrup stirring around in him. Of course, he knew the extra ingredient that would complete the flavor. That satisfying joy he'd felt when he had Randy and his friends on the ropes the day prior, that mixed perfectly with the anger to create some intoxicating product that Jeff almost craved now. He fell asleep lying on his bed thinking about that syrup, that thick viscous that seemed to work its way into the very fabric of his soul. He wanted it, yet he knew that it was destructive and that nothing good could come from sampling it again. Several days passed, and tensions were high between Jeff and his parents. Without Lou around, there was nothing for him to do except sit in his room and play video games. He went outside but didn't venture far from home. He knew if Randy and his goons showed up again, it would likely result in another fight. For a few days that worked well, and Jeff believed he could get through this. However, his mother changed all of that on an early Saturday morning. Jeff was awoken suddenly by sharp sunlight striking his face. He heard his mother humming, something that she rarely did. Even in his half-sleeping state, he knew that humming was forced. She was doing it to wake him up and figured the added sunlight would get things there even faster. When she noticed Jeff's eyes cracking open, she sauntered over to his bed and began speaking in a tone that simply oozed false joviality. At first, Jeff had refused. Could his mother be serious? Did she really expect him to go over and make friends with Randy? He was still in bed when his mother stopped her incessant humming long enough to tell him to get up and get dressed. Once he learned why, he'd told her no way in hell. However, his mother was a shrewd manipulator, and she'd know exactly what would get the job done. She promised Jeff that if he did this for her, went over and made it work with Randy, that Lou could come home the next day. She'd sandbagged Jeff right into the corner with that one. He'd no choice but to agree. A short time later, Jeff and his mother were pulling into Randy's driveway. Randy's mother answered the door. "Hi, you must be Jeff," she greeted. Jeff smiled wanly and confirmed that was in fact who he was. "Hello, I'm Sheila Woods. Nice to finally meet you in person," Jeff's mother announced, barging past her son and extending a hand to Randy's mother. "Sheila, so pleased to meet you. I'm Bridget Hayden. Sorry to hear that our boys had a little mishap the other day. You know how it is though with teenagers, hormones going crazy and all. Randy never gets into fights, but he explained to me that Jeff and his brother are still new to the area and haven't quite learned how we do things in Mandeville yet. Isn't that right, Jeff?" Jeff couldn't resist a small jab. "Yeah, sorry about that, Miss Hayden. Me and Lou had no idea that it was okay for your son and his friends and mess with our bikes without asking. Bridget, he gets that mouth from his father, never knows when to shut up. How about you and I go in and have some coffee and you can tell me all the great gossip around Mandeville while our boys get to know each other the right way." "Randy is in his room, Jeff. Upstairs, second door to your left. I'm sure you'll hear the sound of his video games or something," Bridget stated with very little humor to her voice. "Thank you, Mom," Jeff answered and entered the house. Jeff knocked and heard Randy answer with, "Come in." "Hey, so I guess you heard. Our parents want us to hang out, get to know each other," Jeff stated with little conviction. "Yeah, that's my mom all right. She doesn't like drama. Honestly, I think she worries too much. I mean, I'm cool if you're cool." Jeff sat down on the floor next to Randy and struck up a conversation. "So turns out your dad is my dad's boss. He freaked out about the fight in the parking lot. He was actually worried that he'd get fired or something. My dad is like everyone's boss. I hate it. I think half the kids at my school talk to me because their parents are somehow connected to my dad's firm." "Why do you hate it?" Jeff asked. "Because it's fake. This whole damn town is fake. You'll figure it out as you go, but trust me, everyone who lives here is just trying to pretend there's something else. My parents make me do all this shit, all the trophies and stuff, just so they can brag. That's it." Jeff smiled. "I know how you feel. My dad had me in boxing class a year ago because some coworker of his had a brother that worked at the place or something. As soon as that guy quit, though, I was out of that gym the next week." "I wish it was that easy," Randy responded. "I hate playing baseball, but my dad will sure have me out there again next summer and the summer afterwards. It's like he knows I hate it, but wants to make sure I'm out there with his stupid company name on the back of my jersey." "Randy, why did you and your friends heck with our bikes the other day?" "I told you, this town is fake and boring as shit. There is nothing to do here. We have to find stuff to do. I mean, there are only so many times you can go hang out at the video store or ride the dirt paths in the woods. All the girls here are stuck up. All the stores close early. There's no mall and the movie theater is across town. We were just bored, man. So sorry for that, I guess." "It's cool," Jeff replied. "I guess I'm sorry for too. Things went too far." "You mean the fight?" Randy asked. "That shit was actually cool. Those guys, Keith and Troy, they just leech on because of my dad. It's like I told you, I'm pretty sure their parents make them hang out with me."
That's not the end of the story. If you have hooked up till here, then hit like button and comment down what do you think will happen next. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, then do support me by subscribing so you may not miss any video in future.